Hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview that I conducted with the editor TruthCrab. If you watched the What Makes It Great episode I recently released for one of his videos called Dreamer, you'll remember that I mentioned that I was going to be releasing this. And I'm really excited to share this with you. Just to kind of give a little history to this, if you're not familiar with who TruthCrab is. Back in 2019, as I do every year, I guess it was technically at the beginning of 2020, but I had at that point posted my usual top AMVs, favorite AMVs list on my blog. And on that list were a number of videos from this editor. And it was the first year that he had been releasing videos on YouTube. And he ended up being my editor of the year. Well, this got back to him. Someone showed him my blog and he posted on it. He was like, "Thank you for posting all this. Would you be interested in doing an interview with me?" And I was like, I was really kind of flattered and interested at the time. So I said yes. And then I never followed up on it. And this was like right before COVID hit. So it just kind of fled my mind. You know, I just kind of forgot about it. Once I started doing What Makes It Great, and then later on, more recently, when I started doing some other AMV analysis stuff on my YouTube channel, I remembered that TruthCrab had reached out to me about this, about doing an interview. So I was like, this would be really interesting. I've continued to love his output, and I think it would be really cool to get his perspective on AMVs. So I reached out to him, and I was able to set up this interview. It was a great opportunity. Now, I wanna just quickly put a little caveat. This is not going to be something I normally do. Like, I don't feel like I'm a really great interviewer, to be honest. And it's not something I'm terribly interested in doing, except in maybe exceptional circumstances, which I thought this kind of was, because TruthCrab has always, like, to me, he always seemed to exist kind of outside of the AMV realm, the AMV community. And so I was interested to get his perspective on this. I thought it would be kind of unique in the realm of AMV interviews, of which there are plenty out there. So this is all to say, don't get too used to these. There may be a follow-up interview, as TruthCrab kind of alludes to maybe doing a part 2 at some point in the future. So that may happen, but I'm not going to be doing too many, if any, other AMV interviews. I will use this opportunity real quick. If you do like interviews with AMV editors, I would point you over to a fellow editor named Falconone, and I'll provide a link in the description so you can check that out, where he's doing some interviews with AMV editors, and I think you might find those interesting if you like this. But anyway, I think this is a really interesting interview. I'm almost hesitant to call it an interview. It's more of a discussion with TruthCrab about the AMV scene. And if you're even a little interested in AMVs, even if you don't care for TruthCrab's style or the videos you've seen of his, I would still strongly recommend you listen to this, because he just gives such a unique perspective that I don't think I've ever encountered elsewhere in the hobby in my 15, 16 years of being a part of it now. So, I am going to, before we get to the interview, just for those of you who are not familiar with his work, I am going to show a video of his. It's going to be my favorite video of his from 2021 called Me Heavy. It's a 5 centimeters per second video. So that'll just kind of prime you for the kind of stuff that you can expect to see on his channel if you decide to check it out. And if you're already familiar with that video and you just want to hop straight to the interview, go ahead, skip to this time code right here. For the rest of us, let's watch Me Heavy by TruthCrab, and then get right into the discussion.
I feel like being open. kiss your mouth. You don't need another whiteboard evening, but I need you breathing before my knees. She's all I need. It won't be long. And I know you're holding on. I'm so tired of being strong. But I don't want you to see this face. It's time to be brave. So I pray for the same thing each evening. My baby's healing. Before my knees. She's all I need. I know you're holding on. And it won't be long. I'm so tired of being strong. I found you exploding. I found you beautiful. Don't know a thing that could feel more heavy. Babe, I'm ready.
All right, I am here interviewing Truth Crab, an editor that I discovered a couple of years ago. He's been around for almost 3 years now. And first question I want to ask is probably the most boring question, but it's a question that I feel like I have to ask whenever I talk to anyone about AMVs, and in this kind of interview, it makes sense to ask. So, what kind of editing programs do you use?
Just use one, Adobe Premiere. I've been using it since the year 2000.
Oh, holy cow! Okay, yeah, and I'm sorry. The reason I asked that is because everyone seems to be interested in that whenever we talk about editors editing AMVs. Every year pretty much I go to an anime con, and I have friends that are in the AMV department there who run the contest and who run their own panels and stuff, and they always have a Q&A, and the first question that it inevitably gets asked is what program you use. So I just have to ask it so that everyone knows.
It's a thrilling detail.
Yeah. So the next question I think that is on probably everybody's mind that views my channel and is interested in your AMVs is, how do you make so many?
That is, yeah. Okay. Well, I don't anymore. I don't know if you've noticed, but I used to put like 3 out a day.
Yeah.
A year or more.
Yeah.
And lately it's been like 1 a month or something for a while. So I've totally slowed down, but I guess people who watch my stuff on YouTube don't really know that the whole channel is like a offshoot of a live show, like a weekly live new music show. So the channel's like a byproduct of that. I used to so basically every week I would make like a 2 to 3 hour long show full of new music, and I was making visuals for it. Just because it was like a live stream, so it's not like a radio show, so I gotta have some visuals. And so I would just like whip together these different music videos, and then eventually started noticing that anime worked best for it. And then eventually was like, maybe I should put these on YouTube instead of just playing them once and then moving on. And then I started putting them on YouTube. And so every week I was producing like many videos for this show, and then I would just disperse them on YouTube afterwards. Then eventually I stopped doing the show and just made the videos, and then now I'm kind of doing neither.
Okay. So you mentioned that.
Sorry, that doesn't really answer your question, but that's
Nope.
sort of partially answering it.
So can I ask, was that show like something you did like as a job or to?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's just.
I mean, I made a little bit of money. I was like on Twitch, and then
Yeah.
other streaming platforms. So people would donate occasionally, but nobody really watched it. It never took off in any sort of significant way.
Gotcha.
Um,
How long were you doing that out of curiosity?
like 3 years or something.
Oh,
It
wow.
was see because I was doing like live streaming every day. I was doing like talk show type stuff most of the time, and then the music stuff was like this self indulgent thing that my audience didn't really like. There was like 10% of my audience would tune into it, and the rest of them wouldn't. But I
Yeah.
just loved doing it. It was so much fun, and I loved having a reason to explore all the new musical releases each week, and also just like prior to doing AMVs, the editing I was used to was very like high pressure, like deadlines and working directly with artists that have these really intense expectations, and it was very stressful. And I would spend months on one video sometimes because I used to make. I guess I didn't mention this. I used to make music videos for many years before I even touched any sort of anime.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so AMVs is like this like release where I could just be free to like edit instinctually and just based off emotion and not have to worry about all these other things. It was just this very like liberating type of editing to do. So that's kind of how I got into it. I don't
And
actually watch AMVs. I'm not interested in AMVs or the community at all, quite frankly.
yeah, I was gonna say, so that is not really a surprise to me. And it probably won't, like what I'm about to say is probably going to be of no surprise to you, but your videos have, I've noticed that they tend to kind of exist outside of the AMV fandom. And I think it's due to maybe just a number of different like things that have made me feel that way. I think it's, the fact that they're really simply edited. They don't tend to follow a lot of the prescribed conventions that AMV editors typically follow. They're typically very, focused in that you're using scenes from like a single episode or just a single segment of the film that you're using or whatever. And that's just not something that is ever done in the AMV community. So that doesn't surprise me at all. But I am curious to know then, are you interested in anime at all?
Yeah, but not as much as you probably think. Like, I feel like people who watch my channel kind of assume I'm an expert or something. They're like, "Oh, you know all these obscure things." I only know that because, like, it all started with just basic stuff that I knew, like Ghost in the Shell and Neon
Mm-hmm.
Genesis. Like, I had a little bit of anime knowledge. I enjoyed some of it over the years. Um, sorry, I got a dog
No, it's fine.
just like on the ground moaning. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, so I had a few like I loved anime, but I never really explored it. I knew like Ninja Scroll, and I'd seen Kino's Journey and a few things, but never really got super into it. And then, what was your question again? Do I like anime? Do I
Yeah.
know?
Do you like anime, or do you know a lot of anime?
No. So okay, so I do know some. I like Miyazaki, and I like some other. There's things here and there, a couple series I've gotten into. Like I don't remember what it's called now. But there's this one I watched on Amazon that was like it's like this pit. There's like this
Oh,
giant pit
Made in
made in
Abyss.
abyss. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
that series. I can't wait for season two.
yeah.
There's very specific anime that I like, but I'm not like a hardcore into it. I had a friend who was super super into it, and she kind of turned me on to a lot of different stuff. But I never really like fully dove in, and I haven't seen most of the anime that I've worked with. Like I'd say 90% of the AMVs I've made are with anime that I haven't actually watched. I've just watched it as I'm scanning through looking for
Sure,
stuff that I want to use. I haven't actually like sat there and watched it and listened to what's happening. I don't even know what's going on in half the time. I just make it up.
sure. That, and again, that doesn't surprise me because you're using. And how are you finding these sources? I mean, like, because you are using sources that literally probably no one else has ever made an AMV with.
Yeah, that's one of the most fun parts of this for me was going from just like, okay, I've used some Neon Genesis stuff and I've kind of picked around in things that I'm already aware of. And then I was like, where do I want more, but I don't even know where to start. So eventually I started going to like, I guess my anime list or one of these like just kind of Wikipedia places. And I
Mhm.
would look up an anime that I liked, like Ninja Scroll or something. And I was kind of like understanding more about the crew. Because I went into this thinking you got a director and a writer and that's it, but then you realize like wait, there's a lot more going on with anime. There's art directors and there's key animators and all these different people with these different roles, and I started learning like who does what and who should I care about in the crew of an anime. mostly art direction is the big one for me. And then I would start kind of going through the careers of these different art directors or key animators that have these interesting that maybe you'll find like a particular scene that I love, find out who
Yeah.
the key animator is, and then look at his whole like catalog.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And I would just like dig around, and I mostly like stuff that's kind of before the year 2000. You might have noticed.
Oh
I
yeah.
will dabble a bit, but generally, I love non-computerized anime, and so it's really just been that I just explore and try to find these things that kind of hit me on some level. When I look at it, I go, oh, that looks like I can do something with that, and that's it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on the just personally. I like the animation style of 2000 seems to be right about the cutoff. I mean, I like stuff made after that, plenty of it, but from a visual standpoint, my favorite stuff tends to be older as well. And I just that is probably like one of my favorite. Just so you know, that's like one of my favorite parts of your channel. One of my favorite things that you're doing is you're bringing all these totally unknown, unheard of anime to a whole lot of people.
Well,
And I don't know if there's anything that I've actually watched that I first saw in your any of your videos, but there are anime that I've definitely become interested in and have like been like, okay, I need to watch this at some point. This looks really cool. So yeah, I just want to say it's a really cool thing that like no one else is really doing. All AMVs, well, most AMVs these days are obviously focused more on the newer stuff. It's always been that way. That's nothing new, but it's always cool when people reach back into the unknown, unexplored depths of anime history to create their AMVs.
yeah, thanks. There was a point where like I've kind of, to be honest, given up on this whole thing, doing AMVs thing. I'm probably going to be moving on from it completely. I'll probably like dip back into my channel occasionally when I feel compelled. Like the last like 5 or whatever I've made, they've just been because I just wanted to in some particular moment. I heard a song and I'm like, I'm going to make this right now. But I'm kind of past the point. Like I was really going hard and I was really
Yeah.
trying to make it work somehow. And I was trying different angles and trying to like. What I'm getting at is that my sort of ambition when I was trying to make this thing work was in that direction of what you're talking about. Like if somehow, like let's say some of the artists I made AMVs for noticed and then tweeted them out, and then that some sort of snowball, shit works. Like
Right.
maybe something could have happened that would have gotten some attention on my channel that would have blown it up or whatever. I was kind of hoping for something like that, but ultimately, like the goal of all that, I realized there was no way I could really monetize the channel ever. But the idea of being able to like have some influence in exposing people to new anime and to new music, because really the channel is more about music in many
Right.
ways than it is about anime. But that, to me, that would have been such an exciting and rewarding way to like express myself creatively. But I've just given up on it because no one seems to give a shit, and I feel like there's other places that I can put my energy that I'm going to be more. Look at this guy behind me. I'll be more happy with. So, but you definitely struck on something. That was my intent. I wanted to find this stuff for myself and like, and then, you know, show it to people that would have never watched it under any other. I mean, I feel like there's so many people that could sit down and watch one of my AMVs that would never be able to sit through the actual anime that it's using. And so it's like each, in theory or whatever, my audience is seeing something that they would never have watched if they hadn't have come across my stuff, and that's kind of like exciting. And it's also like a treasure hunt vibe when I'm doing
Yeah.
it. So.
Yeah, I absolutely get that. So let me ask you then: you say that your ambition, if I'm understanding correctly, was kind of to get noticed by people in the industry?
No, not really. Like I was interested. The people that I wanted to notice my stuff, if anything, would be the artists, and some of them
Hmm.
did. I had a bunch of musicians reach
Ah,
out to
okay.
me, and like some of them tweeted it out, and various nice comments. You get little things, and it's kind of exciting, gives you a little rush or whatever, but
Sure.
nothing significant. If there was like a big artist that tweeted it out and had some like massive following, that could create some sort of ripple effect or something like that. But honestly, nothing like that ever happened. It was always smaller artists that acknowledged my work, and so, and nothing else. I mean, the the algorithm on YouTube hates what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Clearly, it doesn't seem to pass it out to anybody, and there's copy. I can't ever monetize it. I definitely tried to make it a thing and tried really hard. Was working on it like daily, basically, as you might have noticed. But I've kind of come to the conclusion that there's no way to because I don't want to. I'm not interested in like just hammering away at a project forever, and even though it's not going anywhere, you have to cut it off at some point.
Yeah. So so AMVs for you, it sounded like at one point they may have been a creative outlet for you, and over time it's no longer that way. Like it's not something you find fulfillment in doing anymore.
I know I do. Because there's kind of like two levels to AMVs for me. There's the like immediate level, which is just like the enjoyment I get out of doing it. Because for a lot, I mean, I used to make these just to show to like 10 people, and I was happy with their reaction. You know what I mean? So I didn't need a lot, but so I really enjoy making these things. It's a really um, just like immediately rewarding process to see
Yeah.
the things click together.
Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah.
anybody who makes these kind of knows the feeling. Um, and there's all these other things that you can like feel and experience through making these types of things, depending on the type of music you use and whatever. Anyway, so there's that, but then there's also like I kind of have to have a bigger purpose to it or a sense that it's going somewhere. And this goes with any creative project I do. There's kind of like, is it fun right now? Yeah. Is it going somewhere? Is it growing? Is there some like end goal that seems to be getting closer to? And at this point, it's like I still love doing it. If there was some millionaire out there that was like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy the rights to these old obscure anime and let you go crazy and fund this or whatever," I would be happy to dedicate my life. Basically, I would just drop everything else, but I just can't keep putting my energy into this thing that like 200 people give a shit about. It's just, and it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and no one seems to be taking it seriously other than people like you.
Well, doing what I can, I guess.
I mean, I do think there's some uniqueness to the. I mean, because I was really picking a lot of music that's more like independent, smaller,
Yeah.
weird stuff that I don't think a lot of people were necessarily grabbing. And I guess that was what I was hoping is like
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
reach those like medium level communities of people, because it's just like, I don't know, like if you're an artist and you're kind of smaller and then someone pulls some obscure weird anime. It's one thing if I was editing like Akira or like I don't know, like Pokemon or something.
Right.
Yeah, that sucks. But if it's some really interesting artistic anime, it kind of like transcends this AMV thing, which was always kind of an issue. Like I always felt like, should I even be putting AMV on the title? Is that driving people away who think it's just this
Mhm.
other thing that it's not? So I don't know. It's I kind of assumed somewhere along the line, doing it for a couple of years, that it would click with somebody on some significant level. It never did. I don't really have great marketing strategies, so I just kind of put stuff out there and see what happens.
Yeah, it's if it makes you feel any better, it is incredibly difficult to have any kind of AMV styled anything really get big unless you are, and I mean I'm talking about, getting big amongst viewers and reaching to the artists. I do know of people who have had artists find their work and acknowledge it and say they like it and share it, but that is so rare. Like it's incredibly rare for that to happen. So
Yeah, I remember all of them. There's like 10 times maybe
yeah,
or something out of all the videos I made. Yeah. Yeah.
one of my go ahead.
No, not.
I was just gonna say one of my proudest moments as an AMV editor is a couple of years ago I released an AMV that used this song by a Japanese like dream pop band, and uh, they're not very well known. And then like a couple days after I uploaded it, they commented on my video. Like the official YouTube page for them commented on my video, and it was just like one of the best feelings ever. So if you say that's happened to you like even 10 times, I'd say that's pretty good.
Yeah, but yeah, and it leaves even though it's just a little moment, somebody just wrote a comment, but when you're,
Right.
as you know, it's like it's rewarding kind of
Yeah.
shit. This guy saw this, and it kind of. I mean, even honestly though, I feel like regular viewers who leave me really thoughtful comments, those ones even are more meaningful, to be honest. Like, and I would include your analysis, your top 10 lists. I don't know if I think there's one other guy, Katranat or something, who might have written something about me or something.
Yep,
I think
she
your
did.
main, yeah, okay. But you've written. I think you're the main person who's written any sort of.
Well, I will say it wasn't. I didn't discover your channel on my own. It was brought to my attention by a fellow editor and friend named Seasons, who also has a blog where he writes about his favorite AMVs, and you've been on those lists. So if you,
I
if
gotta
you,
look those up.
yeah, I'll send it to you after we're done. But yeah, check those out because several of your videos are on the last several lists. So
Yeah, I'll have to check this out. Yeah, because that's such a cool thing to read somebody like. You usually just make the thing and throw it into the void and think nothing of it. And I
yeah,
remember when I first found, I don't remember who it was. Oh, Prostrate Constant.
yeah.
He reached out to me and sent me the lists, and I was like, wow, this guy's like thoughtfully analyzing AMVs. I didn't, because I honestly, until coming across your stuff, I was under the impression the AMV community was just completely garbage. Like it was just people editing Naruto with like terrible rap music and just the obnoxious editing constantly. And I still do think that's the majority of it, just obnoxious nonsense. Like I think this is my big. Let me just throw in this tangent here. My issue with standard AMVs, as I understand them, is that the editors want to be the star of the show, and the anime and the music should be the star of the show. In my opinion, the editing should be invisible. Because like I do these, in my opinion, I do ultra complicated edits, to be honest. And I love that you've written that you think I barely edit them because it's like that's what I want people to think. I want them to think like, oh, this was just the film. Like, is this even anything? Like, did they just clip a scene out? This music is clearly intended for this visual. He must like. I don't want people to even think I touched it. But the reality is, I do ridiculously complicated edits. Actually,
Like, okay, could you expound on that? Because I'm very curious
yeah.
what you mean.
Okay, so I have a lot of rules with AMV. You might have noticed some of them. Um, as much as there's some simplicity, it seems to be there. That's by design, and I'm very like specific about the rules. So, like for example, you're never going to see lips moving in my AMVs unless they're synchronized to the song.
Right.
Which is
Yeah.
maybe like 4 videos I've done that where I actually have the person like singing along,
Yeah. Yeah.
like some Rosalia video or something. Um, so that's rule number 1. And first of all, it boggles my mind that every AMV editor does not follow this rule. It's every single AMV I watch where suddenly a mouth is moving. It's like, what are you doing? Like this is, I don't want to watch this anymore. This is insane. I don't get how that isn't just a universal rule. It's so like discordant to my eye to hear music playing and lyrics and then have a mouth moving that doesn't match up with it. It's like, what is
let me interject here just real quick and say that is an unspoken rule. Actually, no, it's not even unspoken. It's spoken. It's a mistake, I would say, that we call lip flap, and it's not desirable. There are only a handful of situations where it might be okay, but most of the time, most editors, at least the editors that I know, go out of their way to eliminate that whenever possible. So yeah, that is absolutely something that any editor worth his or her salt should know to avoid. Just gonna put that up.
I don't know what's going on. Lip flap. That's funny. Name for. But
Yeah.
I will. There's so many times. I don't know if you've run into this. So many times where there's like a scene that I need so bad for what I'm doing for the edit, but because there's lip flap, I have to like find some alternate way of accomplishing what I'm trying to accomplish. Except this is where I can get. This is one of the areas where I get ultra complicated and nobody can tell. I will manually edit out lip flap. Like I'll go in there and like freeze frame just this part of the person's mouth and track it manually frame by frame. And no one knows I'm doing that, but that can take quite a long time depending on the scene. So it's stuff like that. Like I follow these rules where, to put it simply, I want it to look like you're not watching an AMV, you're watching a short animated film.
Okay. Yeah.
And that can be abstract, or I prefer when possible that it kind of tells a little contained story. And so all the rules I have kind of go around that. It's like there needs to be sort of a purpose for things. So it's like I like to eliminate characters, for example. So it's like if I'm trying to tell a story and there's some character that's not really part of this story that I'm telling, but he keeps appearing all over the place, he's gone.
Right.
And I want to like really focus in on these specific characters that are relevant to the little contained micro story I'm telling. And I love to repurpose scenes from an anime or like just completely shift things around to construct a new story that wasn't there in the first place. So stuff like that I'm really interested in doing. But ultimately, yeah, the rules and the complexity comes from trying to keep it feeling real, like it was like you're not just watching some slop, but you're actually watching like a thought out. Again, like I want it to seem like the animator and the musician were working together. This is just, and yeah, and a lot of the time that requires like patching it together and doing just like weird things to not get lip flap and other problems like that.
Yeah, yeah. I know. So you used an interesting phrase there that I think is really accurate to your style of video, which is like micro stories. I think that is a really cool approach that nobody else is doing. Like nobody, I already said this. I'm repeating myself, but nobody does that. When
Why is no? It's just, it's right there. It's so obvious. Like why would no
so
one?
let me just clarify. Most editors will try to tell some sort of story in their AMV. Often I have found and this is me too. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It's just that a lot of times we'll go for a larger story that encompasses more time, that maybe looks at more than a single character, and so we try to compress a whole lot more into the same space of time. Whereas your videos tend to go the opposite route, where you take kind of one tiny little part of the story and kind of stretch it out, or maybe that's not the right word, like spotlight it for your video. And I think for a lot of people that seems boring, or not the most effective way to use their, the space that they give their AMV, because they feel like they've been kind of conditioned over the years to think that, you have 3.5 minutes. You can do so much with that. You can tell such a sweeping, epic story in that time. But one thing I really appreciate about your work is that you kind of give us these more smaller, intimate moments that are often part of something bigger, but are just as important, or maybe just as interesting as something larger. And I don't know. I think it's really cool. It's a completely different way to approach the medium than most people are trying to do. So,
Yeah, interesting. I I think another problem that I'm trying to deal with, that I see in the brief amount of AMVs I've watched, is that they almost like make them as if the viewer knows who the characters are and what's going on.
yeah,
And it's almost like, hey, we all know what's going on, so I'm going to remind you of these cool moments and stuff. But like, I'm always making them with the assumption that the viewer knows nothing about anything. And so it's like, I feel like you have to kind of focus it in on specific characters, like I said, and the way you present it, you have to be like, I don't know. To me, you have to be aware that it's like the beginning of the video is introducing these characters, and like,
right.
I don't know. It's. I should also mention though, I'm kind of talking about we've been kind of talking about, I'd say maybe 75% of my videos that kind of do that, where it's like a little micro story or something. But there's definitely a lot of other.
Sure.
I've done some other weird stuff where I'll take like a whole film, and there's something interesting about it that's like scattered throughout the film, and I'll
Sure.
take all those little moments, and so it can go in a lot of different directions. But yeah, and actually one last thing that was kind of related to your earlier question of how do I make so many of these, and this is maybe something technique wise that some other AMV editor out there might find useful or something.
Yeah.
Like the way so when I was doing the live show every week, I was making 2 or 3 hours worth of visuals, mostly anime, every single week from like Thursday night to Sunday. And so I had to find a way of being able to do that in a time effective way. And then eventually that carried over to just how I do it up to now. And so basically what I do is I call it like my arsenal, basically. So I'll do all my research, I'll find all the anime that I want to use, and then I'll take it and I'll take each anime and put it into its own little sequence in my editing software, and I'll basically skim through it and chop out everything that looks like I could potentially use it.
Yeah.
And I also kind of mark it, like, is this for a slow song or is this for a fast song?
Okay.
Those are my two distinctions, because it's very different types of anime depending on whether the song is fast or slow.
Sure.
And then I have an arsenal. So then it's like, and then I have like I actually deleted it all recently, but up until recently, I had basically just this massive list of all these different animes categorized according to slow or fast. And then each week when this new music comes out, I basically wait till some song like hits me really hard, where I'm like, I got to make an AMV for this. And then I'm just browsing through going, okay, which one fits? And then it's just like this fun process. All that prep work is done. I'm not messing around. I can just like jump in, and it's just like pure like emotional fun.
Right. Yeah,
editing, and
the
that's
fun part.
that's the
Yeah.
key. Exactly. You do all the. It's like working in a kitchen or something. You do all the prep work first. You're chopping all the carrots and junk, and then when you cook, you don't have to deal with all that nonsense. To me, that's key. If I had to chop it all up and do all that junk every anime, I wouldn't enjoy it. I feel like you have to get like a streamlined workflow if you want to actually crank them out and also enjoy it.
Yeah, okay, that was kind of, I was going to ask that at some point, was kind of what your process is, because I do exactly what you said would make you hate it, which
Yeah.
is I go, I get an idea for an anime. I get the anime. I go through, I do it kind of the old school way where I will scrub through each episode and extract the clips that I think are useful. And
So wait, you're doing it. You're doing it with like an awareness. You're thinking like, oh, so this anime that I watched, there's this subplot here that would be interesting, or there's character, or whatever. So you're already like aware of what you're going in to get. You're not just like looking for it or whatever. That's so interesting because I've
it's
never done that.
it's a little bit of both. I'll use anime that I haven't watched in a long time, so I'm not familiar with it. So I have to go episode by episode and scrub through the entire episode. So as I go through, I look for any scene that could be potentially interesting to be used in an AMV just in general. And I'll usually, like, for an episode, I'll usually clip out like, or make, like close to 100 sub clips. And I'll do that for 12 episodes or 20. God, hopefully I hate doing 26 episode series, but yeah, that's my process. I found that I'm kind of the exception to that. I think a lot of people kind of do a little bit more of what you described, but yeah, there are lots of different methods I've found that people were from how people approach that part of the process. So, but that seems like it's a lot more. That makes a lot more sense, I think.
It's so fun. Like well, it was. I mean, it's to be able to just like you have this song, and then it's like trying on clothes or something, or something like that, where you kind of take the song and then you plop it on. You're looking through the list, and you're like, okay, I think it could work for this one, and then I'll plop it onto the footage that's there and kind of play it and just kind of feel it out. And then you're like, nah, not this one, and you kind of go through a bunch, and then suddenly it's like, oh, this is like really matching nicely.
Yeah.
And then you just go from there and fine tune it and stuff. It's so much nicer to do it that way, where it's just like pure enjoyable editing. And then the other stuff, all the chopping up and preparing, I'll just be like listening to a podcast and just zoning out or something. So it's like nice to kind of compartmentalize it like that.
Absolutely. Actually, and I want to quickly also go back, just because you mentioned something that people tend to edit. You found that editors tend to kind of assume their audience knows the story or the characters.
That's what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because I have an editor friend who when she is giving critiques to other people who bring her videos to review and say, okay, what needs to be fixed, one of the pieces of advice she'll give if she comes across this problem is she'll say, okay, what I want you to do is watch your video, and as the scenes play, say out loud exactly what is happening on screen, and ask yourself if it makes any sense at all, and where it doesn't make sense, fix it, basically. So man, I'm just wondering if maybe you're watching the wrong videos.
I've watched like not many. The only AMVs I liked was I watched a couple by Prostrate Constantly, and I felt like he was almost doing the same thing that I was doing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool. And then I watched a couple of yours. I've watched someone else's, but yeah, I haven't watched much. I clicked on a few of like these popular ones. There's like some guy called Trash or something that was like, millions of views, and I'm watching him going, like, what happened? Like, how did this guy? He must have just like hit it at the right time or something. Because like, I don't really get the appeal of these giant AMV people. It doesn't seem good to me, but they've clearly hit some sort of market.
So I guess kind of moving on. So I'm in a Discord server, an AMV centric Discord server, and a lot of people in there are fans of your work.
I find that so interesting. I'm not aware of like any fans. Like they don't know who these people are. But thank you for.
Yeah. And so I let them know, I'm going to be interviewing you. Do you have any questions? So I just want to make sure I hit some of these questions that they had for you. And you've actually already answered a lot of them. But one that is interesting, that kind of gets away from the AMV side of things. How do you discover new music?
Okay, that's a great question. My answer is going to be. I'm not going to give you the full answer because it's so long and stupid and boring. But to put it simply, to summarize it, been. I had like a radio show, a new music radio show back in like 2011 or something, or
Mhm.
2000. Oh no, 2009 or something. So I've been kind of like, that's been a thing of mine for a very long time, to just be looking around for new music. And to put it simply, just over the years, I've developed methods, especially in the last few years with AMV stuff, where I just like have a process. Every Thursday night at midnight Pacific time, or sorry, 9 o'clock Pacific time, midnight Eastern, whatever, new music comes out. People might not know that, but there's a specific time each week where the bulk of new music comes out, and I'm always there for it. Like right at 9 o'clock, I'm like, all right, we're looking at all this new shit, and I basically just like have enough of like an just awareness of bands and artists to like kind of be able to notice like, oh, this artist has got some new shit. Um, and then I do a bit of exploration, just kind of casual, like that's an interesting album cover, or whatever. So I'm kind of just like spending time each week tracking music, and keeping it organized. I have a list called Artists Worth. What is it called? It's called like Artists of Value or something. I have it on this playlist, and it's just every artist where I'm like, I need to periodically just check in on this artist and see if they've put
Sure.
anything new out. So just that, it's just like developing systems to actually, but it's all manual. I don't have any like, there's no shortcut. It's just me manually listening to a shitload of new stuff every week, and then waiting until something affects me emotional. I should just mention that, I don't know if that's obvious, but like, you're never watching, when you watch a video on my channel, you're never watching a video where I've picked a song for some like, oh, this is a popular song. It's always um something that like actually hits me and affects me, where I'm like I want to like express something about this. I want to like engage with this song, and like, so it's like is a very like kind of emotional component to like why I do this and why I'm picking these songs.
Yeah.
So it's never like, oh, these guys are popular. I do work with I've done like Doja Cat videos and shit, like big, and
You're right.
The Weekend and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
I just because I love those songs. Like I
Right.
genuinely love those songs. So yeah, that's the biggest part. I find new music through all these processes, but the ones I pick that end up being in the AMVs are the ones that I'm just like in love with, basically, and need to get that out of my system.
And I have to say, personally, and I know I'm not the only one, but personally, your videos kind of hit a sweet spot for me. I'm gonna tell you kind of how I came across your videos, because and kind of what happened when in my head when I started watching your stuff. So back in like, I don't know, 2015 or 16 maybe, I came across a couple videos by an editor named MetaCitizen, and he had released these two AMVs set to Lorne songs. Are you familiar with Lorne?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and it was like the one was just like this really dark ambient track with like no percussion. The other was just like this kind of minimal techno kind of track. And the videos were very much like kind of something you would edit, where it was very sparse, I would say, on the surface, sparse cuts and sparse editing. Yeah, 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 yeah. But those videos like really struck me because it was something I didn't realize at the time that I've been craving. But when I watched those videos, I was like, there needs to be more stuff like this. No one is editing with this type of music. No one is editing with this style, and it something like it started a craving in me that I really had no outlet for. And then, like I mentioned, Seasons. He came across one your video, Love, the Perfect Blue video. Um, yes, yes. Um, and so he sent that to me. And this was back when your channel was called Parasite Lake, by the way.
Oh yeah, the original name, yeah.
Um, and so I watched it and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was like, okay, I'll keep this on hand. And it took me, and then a while went by, and I watched it again. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And so I went back to your channel and I discovered all this stuff. And it was like you were doing exactly what I had been wanting someone to do for years. And it like you're using all this music that editors typically want nothing to do with, like ambient house and minimal techno and some of the more just like just ambient style stuff, and like a lot of that you do a lot of that, and I no one is doing that. So I like that really like on top of that, due to all the things I said before about your different approach, like it just like it caused me to rethink kind of my approach to AMVs and what I wanted to see out of them. Um, and so if you haven't already kind of recognized that from all this stuff I've written about your work over the years, just know that at least for me, and I know for at least one or two other people who are deep into the hobby and who have been for years, uh, you have really brought something completely new and special to the table. So uh, I just want to throw that out there, and I'm glad that you're listening to this music that no one else seems to want to edit with and are editing with it, because otherwise it would probably never get the justice I think it deserves in the AMV realm.
Well, thanks. That's
Yeah.
cool. That's yeah. It's interesting to hear that because I'm so unaware of the community. Like it's interesting that you'd sort of like envisioned a scenario where something like these things were being made, and then it happens to align with like what I was going for. I feel like what I did or what I've my style and all this, it's really was like an organic. Like it just all the choices I've made and leading to this point, it all kind of seems obvious to me. Like it just seems like the way to do, or I guess it's obviously just my subjective take on it, but it's all a reaction to like what would make sense if I'm trying to combine music and AMV and publish it, like what makes sense. And that's sort of I landed on all these different variables. But I think maybe what makes my stuff, or partially why my stuff's different, is because I don't know anything about the community. I don't know about the conventions. So I kind of just invented everything myself. A lot of it obviously matches up, lip flap and so forth, but maybe a lot of other AMV folks started by enjoying AMVs and then developed their style and their techniques sort of somewhat based on what they've already observed.
Yeah, I think I would say 99 times out of 100, that's probably how it happens. It's very rare, actually, yeah, I can't think of anyone offhand, that someone comes into the hobby or creates an AMV without already knowing what they are ahead of time and using them as inspiration for their own work. Like, that's another, like, I guess that would be another way where your work is pretty unique, is because you like basically built it from scratch, uh, without realizing it, or without any intention of doing so. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was actually making AMVs before I knew that that was a thing. Like someone was like, there's like an AMV anime music video community, and that was a whole breakthrough like weekend. I'm like, whoa, this is like this. The people, other people do this.
So what? When did you start? When did you make your first AMV? Whether or not it was actually ever released, when did you make your first one?
I actually don't know. It would have been somewhere in 2017,
Ah, okay.
like late 2017, maybe early 2018. And I think the first one I did was using End of Evangelion, using like the crazy psychedelic ending sequence with the giant angel thing. Pretty
Yeah,
sure
yeah,
that was
yeah.
the first one I did, yeah.
Okay.
And by the way, the people that were watching, I had friends at the time that were discouraging me. They're like, "What are you doing? This is fucking nonsense." Like, they're like, "What this is like?" People, some people were encouraging me, but definitely a lot of people that kind of watched what I was doing outside of this really did not understand why I was wasting my time. They were like, "Why are you messing around with this trashy '90s anime that sucks?" Like, because it was so I was doing like like drama commentary, believe it or not. Like I was like the Keemstar of this like small um like Twitch-esque platform. That was what I was known for. So all these people were like, "We want to hear you talk shit about other streamers. Why are you making anime edits?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "Because it's nice." Anyway,
Okay. So I guess obviously, you're not really interested in the AMV scene, and for all intents and purposes, you're not going to be making AMVs on a regular basis anymore. But do you see your work as any kind of contribution to the medium?
I'd like to think so. I mean, I never considered it like that until I saw your writing or read your writing. Um, but knowing, I don't know, knowing that there's some people who watch my stuff and that maybe it's influenced them, I feel like, yeah, maybe I have contributed. I guess if I'm just taking you at your word, which I am, then it sounds like I am doing something unique and that some people have recognized it. And yeah, and if that's influenced them, if there's folks out there that kind of like my stuff and end up doing their own kind of take on it. I mean, I would love that. I would love that so much if there was like 5 other channels that had a similar general approach of trying to find interesting obscure stuff and then matching it up with music they love and really trying to like take time to edit things nicely. That'd be great. I would love to watch those channels, but I don't think that'll happen. I know what is required, and I know that I have a bizarrely hyper focusing kind of a brain that can do a lot of the long, tedious aspects that are involved. So it just feels like it's kind of an odd combination of elements that would allow somebody to like, first of all, be able to do all this and have the time to do it, and then also actually choose to do it. I just don't suspect. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but I'd like to think I have a contribution. Did I actually? I don't know. Will I ever find out? Will I notice if somebody's inspired by me and makes some stuff? I don't know. You said something about like the AMV community and I'm not interested in it or something, and that's true. But I could be. You know what I mean? Like if somehow, let me put it this way: if AMVs emerged as something that people started to give a shit about again, and no offense to people that are into AMVs, but it seems like they had sort of a heyday for a minute a few years ago, and then now it's kind of considered a dead art or something. That's what I understand. I don't know if that's accurate, but
Well, I'm. Where do you? What makes you think that?
I just read it somewhere or someone told me or something. I don't remember. Maybe prostrate constantly. I've only talked about AMVs to him briefly, and then to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I really know nothing about it, but I kind of got the impression that maybe it was like a Wikipedia page or something. I don't know, but it seemed like the consensus by whoever wrote that was kind of that. It's I guess like the feeling I got is that people seem to think that everything that can be done with AMVs has been done, and really now it's just a matter of like applying this kind of cut and paste template to whatever new popular anime is out there, and that sounds depressing and horrible, and it's sort of a terrible scene. But and I don't know if that's true. That's obviously an oversimplification, even if it is somewhat true.
So
Yeah.
I'll
If
just
we
I'll
were to
just
merge, I could be interested in the community if there was one that was like that fostered the type of stuff that I did, and if there was a reason to, I could even get back into doing this more prolifically again. I just don't think I want to do that with no one watching. I need to have an audience, and I'm not going to bother.
yeah. Well, so this is not meant to convince you one way or the other, but I do want to let you know. So I've been a part of the AMV community since like 2006, and I have heard this assertion that AMVs are dead probably every year since I've been in the community. Like it's a constant thing. Um, I think it's a combination of the popular stuff being exactly the kind of stuff that you just described, where well, not just described, but throughout this interview, we've kind of touched on where it's, it's a template. It's, it's the same stuff just being rehashed with either different anime, whatever's popular, or, the next big hit song or whatever. It's always been that way. That said, there has also always been editors who don't necessarily conform to those norms, and I'll be honest with this last year, I was getting so burned out on AMVs as well. I was getting fed up with the patterns that I kept seeing and everything, and I didn't think that there was that much out there that was really interesting or pushing any boundaries or doing anything new. And I ended up being really wrong. I found a ton of stuff that is, I don't know if it would necessarily be up your alley, but it's like, it's still kind of pushing boundaries and doing things I've never seen before. So that is still happening. And I definitely think that there are more videos and more editors than you probably realize that are not just beholden to whatever's popular at a given moment and are just kind of doing what they love and what they feel emotionally connected to. That is like, I do know, like for myself, I'll just speak for myself. AMVs are like my creative outlet. Like when I want to express something or when I'm feeling something AMVs are usually the first place I turn to express that to the world. Um, yeah, and that's I think probably a lot more common than you think in the medium. As usual, though, the stuff that gets popular, that gets the most views on YouTube, I mean, it's just kind of like it's not. I mean, come on, it's not conformed to AMVs. It's like anything that gets popular on YouTube is typically formulaic in some way, right? That's just that's what's popular everywhere. I mean, you look in music, look in movies, look in anything. The stuff that's popular that gets views, it conforms to specific formulas, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
So, um, whether or not you ever want to get more into the AMV community or feel a pull to actually, you know, learn more or explore more, I think there is probably quite a bit more than that you're probably missing just by reading a Wikipedia article or looking up trash AMVs.
Yeah, I mean, that it was like 5 minutes. Like I really haven't spent any time
I know.
about it. I should, but it's the thing is I just don't care about any of it. Like
Yeah.
however, if somebody watching or if you recommend something and there's like a channel out there that I feel like, and if there's a channel there where I watch what they're doing and I go, wow, this is great, I'll subscribe and I'll watch their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't really found. I don't know. I found a couple. Like I was looking. I didn't really watch many that were on your list. I probably should have. I mostly just go to read your reviews on my my videos.
Sure, I think that's probably
Which is the self-indulgent thing that a lot of people probably do. But I did watch a couple of them, and I was like, there was one that I watched, and I was thinking, wow, this is really good. And then I saw Lip Flap, and I was immediately like, I'm done. I can't watch anymore. I turned it off. I was just offended. I was like, no.
Wow.
And it was really good. It was just this one moment of Lip Flap that killed it for me. And I feel like it goes to this. I've heard this concept of flow or something, like that's another AMV term.
Yeah.
And like when I heard about that somewhere along the lines, I was like, oh, that's like they're describing the thing that I sort of prioritize. And Lip Flap is an example of killing that flow. And that, I
Sure.
think that's the problem I have is like, if I'm watching an AMV and that flow gets trampled on, I just have to turn it off. I don't want to watch it anymore. It's like
Sure.
offensive to me. And so if I could find, basically what I want is to find another channel. They don't have to have the same taste as me, but just show me something new. Have a perspective on music. And then if you can keep that flow going, then I would be a very happy subscriber. I just don't think there's anything out there like that. I would be very pleasantly surprised if there was anything out there like that that would satisfy me at all.
So it's for you. It's like the music first, and the emotional reaction to the music is kind of the most important thing. If I'm reading you correctly,
Kind of, because the music is so central. Like yeah,
it drives everything.
yeah,
in the
because
video.
I mean, it's an AMV to me is the sort of alchemy of, or potentially is the alchemy of the anime and the music fitting together in a way where it creates something that's better than either one of those things by themselves. That's kind of what I think the goal should be, that you make something where it's like someone watching that will enjoy it more potentially than watching and listening to those things separately. I don't remember what I was even talking about.
No, you answered the question.
Okay.
Okay. This is all very interesting to me. I'm going to ask you a question that is probably a little less interesting, but is more just to sate my own curiosity.
Sure.
Do you remember all the videos that you've released?
No.
Okay.
I recently went back and watched something from like a year ago, and I was like, I love this, but I barely remember doing it. I smoke a lot of weed, to be honest, which is probably part of it. I mostly am high while I'm editing. I'll just throw that out. I don't know if anyone else out there watching relates, but weed is part of it for me, or has been historically. There was a period for about 3 months where I quit in 2021, and I wonder if anyone can tell the difference between the AMVs I edited sober versus under the influence of weed. But sorry, what was the question again? What am I talking about?
I was just wondering if you.
Yeah, do I remember?
Yeah.
No, that's one of the things is like, I feel like my channel is almost like a diary, because when I go back and watch some old video, I'm like, I remember vaguely what was going on with me and what I was feeling when I made that. And Yeah, and so I generally I'm so focused on the edit and watching it over and over and da 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 that by the time I release it, I kind of don't want to watch it again for a while.
Yeah.
It's out of my system and I'm sick of the song basically. But then if I wait a little while and come back to it, it's very rewarding and enjoyable because I don't remember a lot of it.
That's okay. So that's really interesting. The describing your channel is kind of like a diary.
It is for sure, yeah. And
That's really
actually,
cool.
can I just add to that? This
Yeah.
this this is an odd detour that I should maybe not get into, but I'm going to. It's a diary where in times I don't know if anyone else out there who makes AMVs does this, but there's times where it's almost like coded messages about my life. Like
Hmm.
there's certain videos I release where partially by coincidence, partially just because it's like a fluke that I happen to have this anime here and the song has these lyrics that kind of reference what's going on in my life or whatever. And there's certain videos where it's like it's really almost like it's very diary-esque. And the unfortunate side effect of that I found out is that some people read into well one person I don't know if I had a viewer who basically was struggling with some sort of psychological issues and who was convinced that I was sending her messages through the AMVs, and it was a very strange and intense experience. And it kind of made me like question, like, am I like, what's going on here? Like, is it like, should I tone this down? Am I entering weird territory? Am I like, I don't know. It kind of like made it. It's kind of an odd experience, as you can perhaps.
Yeah. You can't really control how other people are going to react to your work.
No,
Um,
but it was a weird like almost felt like an invasion or something.
yeah.
It's like, well, this is not the goal here. Like I am trying to kind of communicate how I'm feeling, but like it just felt like this kind of invasive, weird thing where I was like, maybe I'm letting maybe I don't know. It just kind of crossed some line where I
Hmm.
felt like safe to be putting like my thoughts and emotions into these videos, and then suddenly I'm like, there's potentially weird consequences to doing this. Apparently,
So throughout this conversation, I've actually been very pleasantly surprised to learn how personal your videos are to you, because it was really easy for me, and I think probably most other people, to look at just the sheer volume of videos you've released over the past 3 years and think that, oh, he's just churning out, video after video with no real thought or feeling behind it. And I have had people unironically and only really half jokingly wonder if you were just putting these together using some sort of, AI or program, like, that was just cutting on certain, I don't know, but like there was this sense that maybe he's not actually putting as much thought into these videos as I am prescribing to them. So I love it makes me so happy to hear that these videos actually mean something to you and are an emotional or a creative release. That's really cool.
that's cool to hear that. Yeah, I feel like if you just look at the numbers, if you look at how much I released, it's understandable that someone would think that. But I feel like the thing that sort of disproves it is if you actually watch them. I think
Right.
it's hard to think, oh, this was just some algorithm or
Right.
some like
Right.
thing.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, definitely. I mean, there's. I'll say this: some of them are more meaningful than others for
Of
sure. There's
course.
some
Yeah.
videos there where it's like I hear a song, I'm like, this is a fun song, and I have some fun anime. Like, let's do. I don't know. There's some kind of what's this one called? I do some like sleazy stuff. I don't know if you've seen. I do some
Yeah.
stuff where there's boobs flying around. I found out that nipples are okay on YouTube as long as it's not sexual. You can show tits and you can show nudity. You just can't have sex. And I found this out. I'm like, I'm going crazy from now on. Whenever because a lot of anime is very provocative, and
Uh huh.
I've got some risque stuff on my channel. If you guys have never explored the 18 plus section, um, so yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. I keep going off on tangents and losing my train of thought.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Um, do you have out of 800 plus videos, do you have one that you would call your favorite or that is most meaningful to you?
I was actually thinking about this earlier because I was like, I thought you might ask something like this, and I was like, if he asks about one of your favorite ones, which you got to think of something good. I don't know that I have one. There probably is one. If I look through all 800, I bet I could like single out one of them. But off the top of my head, I don't know. There's some that are like really like one of the ones you wrote about, this Autechra track that's like 10
M-
minutes.
M4 Lemma.
Yeah, now that's not my favorite by any means, but
Mhm.
that's an example of one that I spent an absurd amount of time editing. Like that was like a really extensive edit. So I don't know, like I don't know. Off the top of my head, one that I just watched recently that I really enjoyed that nobody seems to have watched is like 200 views or something. It's called Forest Ritual by Otto,
Okay,
Otto.
I'm not
It's not
seeing
my
that one.
favorite, but I watched that recently and I was like, that's one of my more, I feel like it's almost a perfect AMV by my standards.
Wow.
Um, but I look, I don't know.
No, that's. I'm gonna have to check that one out. I have not seen that one yet. So,
there's,
I
there's,
w-
there's better. It's,
I will say that M4 Lemma video. That one was. I love all the little things you did in that video. There's so many cool moments of sync, like of what we would call internal sync, where you're matching up the motion or the whatever's happening in the video to the sounds in the song rather than like cutting on the beat or whatever. There's so much of that in that video, and that was one of the first videos from yours that I saw where there was actually like a lot of it, and it's such a cool, interesting, fun little video. I don't know if fun is the right word, but it's fun to watch.
it's a weird one and such a weird
Yeah.
song. It's not, it's probably one of the strangest edits I've done. But it was so much fun. Like there's so many weird sounds, and that anime just fit it so well. It was such like a nice combo. And you commented, I thought it was interesting. You in your write up on it, you commented on this particular moment where this ship takes off,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I rewatched it, and I'm like, he's right. Like that is a very odd, but like somehow satisfying combination. It just feels right in this bizarre way. And that's what I mean, honestly, what this is all about, AMVs and like the other stuff that I'm interested in. There is something really magical that a lot of people, even outside of AMV stuff, recognize about the combination of music and film. And really,
Hmm.
to me, AMV is just an extension of that. I remember like hearing Quentin Tarantino talk about it when I was like a teenager, and being like, he's onto something. Like that's the magic of this. Um, I think about like the real origins of me doing AMVs, and the very beginning of it to me was the first time I edited piece of footage of myself walking down the street to like a song from the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack where they're all walking on the street and they all look really cool. And I
Mhm.
just felt this thing like, oh my God, this like I filmed myself. And then now there's a song that makes people look cool. And I've combined it and now I look cool. And it was this like amazing feeling. And it's like that I've just been chasing that, or that's been like all the way up to AMVs and stuff. It's I feel like it's an extension of that, of like the magic you can feel when you synchronize, when you combine these elements in a way where you're like making something
Yeah.
special.
So I'm I'm curious. So you had mentioned at the top of the interview that you used to work on actual music videos for artists. Um, do you feel? Obviously, I've always been curious about how those are made, and I don't want to necessarily go down this route because it's a long conversation tangent. But um, you're obviously beholden to someone else's vision on those types of projects, right? Or were you given any kind of creative control?
I did everything kind of. I had a
Oh,
crew, I had people, but I would write them, I would pitch the ideas, I would do the cinematography, the
oh
editing.
wow, okay.
I did like everything. I didn't act in them, but I did all the, yeah, I was, and I had kind of, I always got projects where I basically had final say.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was never beholden really to anybody. I mean, a little bit. The record labels sometimes might have to approve or something, but I never had to like do someone else's ideas.
Okay. So did you take anything from that uh, part of your life into your AMV editing career, so to speak?
I mean, totally. Like it's to me, it's the same thing. It's the difference is just that AMVs to me, it's more of a pure. Um, it's weird. It's like there's, I mean, there's a purity to music videos. The music videos I was making, because it was everything was coming from me. I'm not taking from anime. I'm
Sure.
producing everything myself. So there's kind of this sense that it's like it's more of a pure piece of art, and I guess it is. But the actual experience with AMVs, there's something more pure about it to me. Maybe pure is a weird word, but there's something where it's like I can just kind of zone into the process of making an AMV, and it's like, you know, maybe takes me, depending on what it is, 2 to 4 hours or something to put it all together, maybe less if it's just like really clicking nicely. And that's just such a enjoyable, delightful experience. Whereas a music video thing is this long, complicated, step by step, da 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 da. So it's really just taking this thing, like making music videos is almost like this boot camp thing, and then I took all of that experience and like timing and rhythm and even just like the basic mechanics of how to edit and all
Right.
that I learned over those years. Because I was doing it for like 10 or more years. I'm still technically doing it. I'm gonna make more music videos.
Okay.
But yeah, taking all that and then just putting it into something that's so much easier and less stressful. It's very freeing and exciting and fulfilling. It's like being a big Hollywood. I mean, this is a weird parallel, but or comparison. But imagine being like a big Hollywood actor and then just like being like, this is too much. I'm just gonna go like do plays, like respectable plays that I appreciate. Not many people are gonna watch, but I can enjoy this more. I can get into it more. It's something along those lines. It was just like a freeing way of doing what I wanted to do without any of the bullshit and then putting all this crazy pressure. Like this has got to be perfect. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one video has to have every detail. So yeah, but it definitely like there's no way I'd be doing AMVs if I hadn't have developed all that stuff over those years.
Okay, wow. Let's see. Just scanning through all the questions. I think we got everything that everyone else had asked. One final thing I just wanted to kind of I don't want to sound like I'm coming across like I'm praising your work without exception. But
Criticism, yeah, let's get into it.
no, I don't have criticism. Because I have another good thing I wanted to say. I'm saying I don't want to come across like this is some sort of hero worship or something. But one other thing that I do think is really cool about your videos is that you take, as we've already talked about, you take old kind of obscure sources and match it up with like brand new music, like hot off the press music. This has always been something that's kind of for other AMVs and other editors has always kind of been a sticking point for me, where old anime mixed with like brand new music, often there's just this weird disconnect that I've never, until I saw some of your videos, was like not able to get over. But I love I was watching a couple of your videos today before we started this interview, and one of the ones that I watched was All Day Long, the World Masterpiece Theater video set to the Chance the Rapper song. And I just thought it was so cool. Like it was that's a perfect example of this like brand new rap song set to this like kind of hokey looking 70s anime, I think 70 maybe 80s, but I think it's from the 70s. And it just like it works so well. You really honed in on the mood, like just the celebratory, upbeat mood of the song, and the visuals matched it perfectly. And so this isn't really a question. This is more just saying like I think that it's again, I feel like I'm repeating myself when I keep saying I think that it's cool that you do X, but I think that it's cool that you do this and you're able to you're able to identify the mood so well in pretty much every video you make. You hone in on the tone of the song so perfectly. There have only been a handful of videos of yours that I've seen that I felt hadn't done that, and that's super rare. I don't know. No one else is this consistent. So, again, I'm getting a little like, all hail Truth Crab here, and
I love it.
but I don't know. I love it. I love it. So
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it's nice to hear because that's what I'm going for. Like I really want. I want that to be the case, and I think I know what you're talking about too. There's like when you say putting ultra new music with older anime, it doesn't align necessarily a lot of the time, and I can see why. Like if the song sounds modern and the visual sounds old, then it doesn't make sense. But I often use, you might have noticed, a lot of the music I find it might be new, but they're using maybe the sound
sure,
kind of dusty or something. And
sure.
There's usually a way, yeah. But honestly, the only way I can possibly accomplish that, I'm going to assume that I'm I'm just gonna take your compliment as if it's a fact. The way that I accomplish that is really that system I talked about before, where I have
Right.
this huge arsenal. You can't achieve that. I mean, unless you have this encyclopedic knowledge or something of anime or something like that, you can't achieve what I've been apparently, according to you, achieving and what I'm attempting to achieve without having that massive arsenal so that you can go through it and actually pinpoint something that fits. If you're just going like, oh, I love this song, I got 3 anime options here, or I'm just going to think of something, you're not going to find that perfect match. But if you've got 100 things to choose from, which for a while I did have like probably about 100 different animes at any given time that I could, and you might have noticed I also pick away at an anime. So
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, this fits here, but then I'll leave that anime for like 2 months and I'll come back to it 2 months later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll never use. You probably notice another rule of mine is never to use the same thing twice. Mine,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I do break that rule sometimes, but that is because sometimes I'll decide an old video sucks and I'll delete it and then I'll allow myself to
Okay.
potentially reuse that footage if I feel I need to.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of have this idea, even though it's insane. Like, I kind of treat it as if people watching have seen every video and they're gonna notice if I do the same thing twice, which is not actually the case, but I treat it like that. Anyway, the point I'm getting at is that, yeah, if you really want to be able to like find the right mood and find that perfect thing, I feel like the only way to do that is to invest a ton of prep time and have that arsenal prepared. And if anyone really wants to go deep with AMVs and do something in the realm of what I'm doing, that to me is like, you have to do that. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
I feel like there are definitely corners of the hobby where if they were to hear someone say that, specifically that you don't watch all the sources that you use, I feel like there are some people who would not like that. Let's just put it that way. Because
Let them come and talk to me. I'll tell them that.
well, yeah, and I mean the thing is there are other. I mean, I think that's kind of becoming an antiquated position to take, because there are lots of editors who just look at anime as kind of a source, and not that they don't watch or enjoy anime, but if there's something cool that they come across that they want to use in their source, they're just going to use it regardless of whether or not they've actually seen it. And I also think it's interesting that you are somehow able to create these stories, create this emotional connection without having one yourself to whatever it is you're using. Because that is something that for me, I would feel like it would feel a little wrong for me to use an anime that I haven't seen before in a serious serious attempt to make an AMV, because I would feel like I would be disrespecting the source and not be able to appropriately or properly convey the emotions present in the anime. But maybe I think that's probably just more my own personal hangups, and it's not something I would hold against anyone. But anyway.
I like this topic because this is an interesting. I have an opinion on this.
Okay.
And I think it's really interesting. I think maybe where I'm coming from is that, like, I feel like maybe people who make an AMV based on an anime that they've watched, it's kind of coming from a place of fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Not maybe
Definitely.
not always, but probably a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And like and that's not the case for me. I'm not a fan of any of this stuff that I work with. Maybe a little bit of it, but this for me, like, it's the thing we talked about where it's an expression. I'm getting stuff off my chest or whatever, and I'm expressing my love for music and whatever, and that's happening. But I think my fandom, or the thing that so I guess, like, you're talking about like the respect thing, and like, so if you've watched an anime, you connect with it enough that you want to make an AMV out of it.
Yeah.
You have this like respect for it, this appreciation for it. You want to express that or whatever, right? So it's sort of coming from that place, maybe this appreciation for the AMV. My appreciation is for the animator. My appreciation is for the art director. So I don't need the audio. I don't need to know the story because I'm not really there for the story. I want to extract my own story out of it. So I don't really need to know what was originally going on most of the time. And so, like, I guess that's where my priorities are. I'm there. I want to highlight this incredible chunk of anime or of animation that some guy slaved away at in some weird studio in 1982, and no one's watched it in 20 years or whatever. That's the guy that I'm sort of tributing. I'm not tributing these characters and this story that's maybe not even nearly as interesting as what went on in this studio to make this thing. So like I guess like my priorities are like a little different, and I don't have that same like putting the anime itself on a pedestal. I put the artists who created the anime on that pedestal, I think, and that's who I'm kind of paying tribute to, or that's where my respect lies mostly.
I think, yeah, I think you may have just unlocked something for me by framing it that way, because I came into AMVs, you know, back in 2006 as primarily as an anime fan. As time has gone on, I've become less and less enamored with anime, and it's more just something I watch occasionally. And often I'll watch something because I think I might want to make an AMV for. So it's become kind of like this compulsory thing that I feel like I have to do if I want to make an AMV, because I have a certain song in mind that I want to edit, but the only anime I know offhand is anime X, where I've seen this anime used in other AMVs, and I think it would work for my concept as well. Blah blah blah. So yeah, that's an interesting angle that I wonder how many. I wonder if there are going to be if there's going to be anyone who will watch or listen to this that will hear that and feel the same way that I do, because I felt in the past I felt kind of restricted by not being able to use certain anime because I haven't watched it yet for my own AMVs, right? So
There's another element too on a more practical level. If you're trying to tell your own little story using a bigger work as your basis, you're going to, in my opinion, you're probably going to do a better job of it without knowing what the original story was, because that's not going to influence you or bias you. If you want the
right,
original story, just watch the original anime.
right,
We're trying to create little pieces of self-contained art. The original story shouldn't really matter outside of like what it provides you and what you can sort of work with. But yeah, I don't know, just like learning about these key animators and what they do and watching like documentaries, particularly like the time periods I'm working with, 70s to 90s mainly. I mean, these guys are working in crazy conditions and producing this just unbelievable art. And a lot of it is like so innovative. Like to see like the kind of, you notice if you start really going through all these animes, you notice these like milestones. Like, oh, this guy really figured out how to do water in a cool way.
right.
People expand it. That stuff is really interesting too. I don't know much about it. I haven't watched a lot of like documentaries or whatever, but just from watching so many of these animes or skimming through them and working with them, you notice a lot of really, I find really interesting stuff about how anime evolved in Japan.
How do you find, because I mean, I know obviously you have stuff like Studio Ghibli, right, where it's super popular, so there's lots of information on the people who created those works. But then you're really digging, you know, your AMVs dig into really obscure stuff. How are you finding information on these animators and stuff that is of more than footnote quality?
I'm not really, because I don't know anything about them personally in most cases. I only
Ah,
really know their like resume.
okay, okay.
Yeah, like the guy that I love the most, I don't even know their names, by the way. Like I don't remember. I only know like in the moment when I'm looking for it and then I forget it. But the guy, my favorite guy by far, is the guy behind like Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust
Okay.
and Ninja Scroll and like that guy. And I don't know if, I don't even know if I'm thinking of the art director or the director. But there's the, what's that guy? Kintaro? Is that
I'm probably
anyway,
less
whatever.
knowledgeable than you on this, to be
In any
honest.
event, like there's that guy to me is just the ultimate genius. Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. I've still never watched it. I don't know what the story is about,
Yeah.
other than as a vampire who looks cool. But the animation in that is so. It's just, to me, it's like a perfect,
Hmm.
visually, it's a perfect piece of art.
Wow.
There's
Okay.
moments in it where I'm like, this is just unbelievably cool. But yeah, as far, and yeah, I don't know the backstory. It's just like Wikipedia as clicking around, and I think it's myanimelist.net or something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
And it's the thing that works for me is like, find an anime I like, click on the name, and then I look through the resume and I'm like, oh shit, they worked on this and this and this. Okay, let me look at what's in between those ones I recognize.
Mm, mm.
They were involved in these awesome projects. What about these less well-known projects that probably have equally awesome anime or animation, but maybe just the story sucks, so people didn't really get into it. Actually,
Sure.
that's like my main area is finding anime where the story's terrible, so no one knows about it, but the animation's awesome. Because like if the story's bad, it's not going to really stick around. People aren't going to really be talking about it and remembering it and stuff. So there's a lot of that. Like, what's it called? Harmageddon Genma Taisen is one of the first weird, obscure anime that I found that's just like unbelievably good animation, but the story is so idiotic, and some of the other stuff is so idiotic that it's like no one would want to watch it. No one should watch it.
Yeah.
It's just perfect material for AMVs.
Yeah. Well,
That's
that's
my
real.
logo. The guy with the red dot,
Yeah. 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 Okay.
Armageddon. Yeah. I wanted to. Can I just go back to just
Absolutely.
and regarding like what I would recommend or what my favorite anime is on my channel or something. I want to return to that in case anyone actually. If you really want to look at the ones that mean the most to me by a long shot, there's a playlist on my channel called Osamu Tezuka, and that's just the name of it, Osamu Tezuka. It's maybe like 10 videos, and I actually was really into manga for a long time. More than anime.
Hmm.
And do you ever read manga? Does that
Oh yeah, I've read some manga. Yeah.
And similar to my AMV stuff, as you might imagine, I'm into old manga, particularly this guy Osamu Tezuka, who is best known for like Astro Boy. Do you know Osamu?
Yeah. I'm familiar with Astro Boy. Did he make? He made. Did he make Phoenix as well?
Yes,
Is that one of
Phoenix,
them? Yeah.
which is one of probably my favorite comic series of all time.
Okay.
And Phoenix, when I found out it was adapted, some of the Phoenix stories were adapted into anime. I just kind of lost my mind because I love the Phoenix stories. And so those videos, the ones that are based on Osamu Tezuka in general, but particularly the Phoenix ones, they're all in this playlist, Osamu Tezuka. Those are my best videos in my opinion, the ones that kind of mean the most to me. I'm just kind of skimming through it here, and there's, yeah, like particular, yeah. Anyway, so check that out if you want to know the stuff that I like the most. Not only do I like it the most, and I think like the best stories were told, sort of.
Right.
Um, it's also like the ones that are sort of on a more personal level for me. So check those out.
Cool. I
Osamu
will. Yeah.
Tezuka, yeah,
I definitely will.
yeah, he's amazing. Osamu Tezuka is so incredible.
I have a friend who is. This is a total tangent. I have a friend who is a huge fan of his work, and he's an artist, so he kind of copies his style in his own work and is able to draw that stuff. So um, I've always wanted to watch Astro Boy just for the history of it. I'm not a huge fan of that animation because it's really really old and really simple. But I am familiar with Phoenix, and I've seen one or two AMVs that use it, and it looks really good. So that's cool.
There's some amazing Phoenix movies where it's just like this lush, like big budget. I think 80s maybe, and no one seems to know about. I feel like this is the other thing, by the way. This is a bit going back to what we were talking about before. But we're talking about like ambitions and stuff. I always, in the back of my mind, I was always kind of hoping um, that somehow something that I was doing in here, if it did take off, would put me in a position where I could maybe be involved with re-releasing some of this stuff.
Hmm.
Because to me, it's like tragic that people are aware of you know, Miyazaki and these different things, but the fact that no one in the West really has seen these Phoenix anime, and they're like these just huge, big budget, incredible spectacles, and like I don't even know if they've been like translated or anything, and like I wish in a different world where I was a rich man or something, I would love to have kind of like a Criterion collection, if you will, of like almost like a record label to re-release these like lost anime, to clean them up and, you know, put them out there
For sure.
like Western audiences.
For
That
sure.
that would be like the ultimate for me as far as like where this could ever lead to. But I've completely given up on that. But
Did he also make Night on the Galactic Railroad?
I don't think so. But that's definitely no, I don't think
Mm,
so. But
never
that's
mind.
something I've worked with a lot, and that I also they seem to have kind of some similar sensibilities. But
Yeah, yeah.
Suzuka did like Buddha. He does a long series about Buddha that I also really like.
Okay. I'm familiar with. I'm familiar with his name as an animator, but I've never seen personally any of his stuff. So
Blackjack, that like surgeon guy with the mohawk.
no, I don't know.
Whatever. But yeah, it's funny because I'm more into manga than AMVs or than anime actually.
Cool.
Anyway, so there we go.
Cool. Um, I think that pretty much covers all the questions I had, and I think we've had some pretty good discussions. But I also wanted to give you a chance. Do you have any questions for me about the AMV community or just AMVs in general, that you wanted to touch on that we haven't already?
Um, I did have some. I feel like I may have forgotten most of them. Um, I guess I'm like Is there some, in your opinion, is there like a hub for all of this? For like, let's, okay, actually, that's my second question. First question is, in your mind, is there kind of an sort of, let's say, alternative AMV sub community that maybe is has a similar sensibility to what we've been talking about, this sort of um, rejection of the mainstream style, the editor focused style, and kind of more in the ballpark of what I'm doing? Is there something like that that exists, or is it really just a couple people?
Yeah, so both of those questions kind of have a similar answer. There once was a place for a hub for AMVs, and that was animemusicvideos.org. That website is still around, and it still hosts AMVs, and the forum, you can still post on the forum and stuff, but it's basically dead. Like it's home to maybe a handful of regular posters, myself kind of included, but not much else. Unfortunately, YouTube, well, I won't say unfortunately, but kind of unfortunately, YouTube, when it came around, pretty much fractured the centralized community. And since then, there have been several attempts to kind of bring all the editors into one single place, and none of them have really worked. So I'm going to answer the second question first. No, there's no real centralized place. There are like AMV Discord servers that have collections of editors, and I mean, maybe 100 to 200 editors, etc. But no, there's no centralized place anymore. As for kind of a more, I guess you could call underground or whatever, anti-mainstream community, also no, not really. That's more of a loose collection of people and friends, and like I I want to say that probably definitely the person that influenced my blog and my kind of tastes the most towards this kind of alternative style, let's call it, is the guy I mentioned earlier, Seasons, who has had his own AMV blog for much longer than I have. But through meeting him and then talking to some other editors in the Discord I'm in, we all kind of have similar tastes, and we like these offbeat types of videos, but there's no concentrated place where people are making them. And even those of us who like those types of videos aren't always actually making them. I will say, you should check out, I've mentioned him already several times now. You should check out Season's videos. His are very much kind of up your alley and similar in some ways to the stuff you're making. And also Kat Renat, the girl who wrote about the other blog you read, she has also released some videos that I think are kind of on the same wavelength as what we've been talking about.
All right, well, that answers my question, I guess. And that's what I assumed. There really wasn't. It just seems like such a niche thing.
It is.
Which is sad because I feel like it doesn't need to be. Like, I feel like I could show, if I kind of knew somebody's musical taste, I feel like I could pick an AMV and they'd watch it and they'd be like, wow, this is great. I want more of this. But it's so hard to like explain to somebody why this is. It's such a, you know what I mean? It's like, it's an odd thing to kind of like market or try to like, here's a thing, check it out. It's anime and it's edited to a song. Like, that doesn't sound very good on paper.
Yeah, and every time someone asks me like, oh, what do you do for fun? Just like an acquaintance or a family member or something. And my wife will bring up, oh, he makes AMVs or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, now I have to explain like what this is, and like they're just gonna nod and smile and be like, oh, that's okay.
Really cool over there with the anime. Yeah, that's the reaction. That's why I don't even tell people my real life. I don't really talk about this because I mean, a couple of my friends who know what's going on, but most people, like, I wouldn't even mention this because it's just gonna be like, yeah, really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a niche thing, but I think it's interesting because like you look online and there are AMVs that have millions of views, right? So it's reaching some people, but I think to get to the kind of stuff that you like and that I tend to like, you have to really dedicate yourself to the actual medium itself or the hobby itself. You're probably not gonna go down that rabbit hole looking for the weird videos unless it's something that already speaks to you above and beyond what, the 10 million view videos will.
Yeah, which is sad. I mean, I don't know. I'm moving on from this with a heavy heart. Like I wish there was a way that I could continue doing it, but
Yeah.
got new projects and new places I'm going to be putting these energies. But for those of you who are watching that want me to continue, I will be continuing, and it'll just be slow. It'll just be occasionally. But when I do put a new video out, you'll know that it means I got really excited about this song and really. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, and anyone who's watching, who's made it this far in the interview, who doesn't already know who Truth Crab is, you've got 800 plus videos to go through, so yeah, it'll take up some of your time anyway.
Check them all out.
Yes, in order.
Yeah.
Anything else that you had questions on or you wanted to discuss?
No, but I feel like we could, if you continue doing this series, and if you run out of other people to interview, I'd love to do a part 2 down the road, and where we maybe make it more of a two-way interview.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Prepare some questions in advance, but yeah, I think this would be a good time to wrap it up. And this
Sure.
is a lot of fun. This is actually the first time I've ever been interviewed at all, so it's kind of cool.
I'm glad I could be the first. If people want to check you out besides your YouTube channel, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
Not really. I
Okay.
have an Instagram that I never really do anything with significantly, but yeah, just check out the playlists. I think people don't know this. I have playlists for like electronic or by mood. There's a playlist just called like Love Crab, that's all like love songs. There's like Sad Crab, that's all the sad songs. So yeah, maybe you don't like the rap stuff that I cover. Maybe you know what I mean. So go check out the playlists on my channel if you like what I do and you want to explore it. I recommend check out the playlists.
Oh, actually, thank you. Yeah, that's good. That's a good plug. I actually did have one more question I wanted to ask.
Sure.
Where does your handle come from, Truth Crab?
That's the name I came. It's a long story. I sort of like a random name I came up with many years ago, and then I brought it back when I started live streaming because I started live streaming. I called myself True Crime because I wanted to talk about true crime, and then I realized that's a stupid name, and then I was like, and then I was like, Truth Crab. It kind of reminded me True Crime, Truth Crab. It reminded me of that name, and I was like, oh yeah, I should use that old name from a long time ago. And then I
Okay.
just kept it, and then eventually I realized it sounded kind of pretentious, like I am the truth guy. Now I kind of regret it a little bit, but whatever. There's no real. That's the closest thing I have to a backstory. It's just kind of sounds good. I think it sounds cool.
For what it's worth, I actually think I liked Parasite Lake a little better, but
That was a whole other thing where I was briefly trying to create an entity. I directed a rap video for this guy, and I didn't want to have it associated with my other stuff. So I was like, I was come up with the name Parasite Lake, and then anyway, but that's
okay.
the origin of that. And then I was like, fuck Parasite. It sounds like a horrible vacation. The beaches of Parasite Lake. All right, but anyway.
All right. Well, thank you very much for giving over an hour and a half of your time to this interview. This was great. Would love to do a follow-up. We'll have to schedule that. And until next time, bye.